You probably assume a casino makes its money the obvious way. Thousands of people sit down at blackjack tables and slot machines, the math is quietly tilted in the house's favor, and over millions of bets, the casino wins. That's true. It's also nowhere close to the full story. If House Edge alone explained casino profits, the industry would look completely different than it actually does. The biggest gaming companies on earth, Las Vegas Sands, Wynn, MGM, the Macau operators, don't run their business like a math problem about probability. They run it like a real estate empire and a credit institution that happens to have slot machines on the ground floor. Understanding why reveals something almost nobody thinks about when they picture a casino. Start with Las Vegas, because the shift there is the clearest. Walk into a modern strip resort and count how much floor space is actually gambling. It's a shrinking fraction. The rest is hotel towers, restaurants by celebrity chefs, retail corridors selling designer handbags, nightclubs, pools, spas, and increasingly, massive convention centers. That's not decoration around the casino. In many of these properties, gaming revenue now makes up less than half of total revenue. Rooms, food, entertainment, and retail carry the rest. This wasn't always true. Through most of the 20th century, Vegas casinos gave away cheap rooms and buffets specifically to get people onto the gaming floor, because gambling was the profit center and everything else was bait. That model flipped. Today it's often reversed. The casino floor is the bait that gets someone to book a $400 a night room, buy $200 dinners, attend a convention, and spend on entertainment they wouldn't have traveled for otherwise. The gambling still makes money, but it's increasingly the smaller piece of a much larger machine built on hospitality margins and real estate economics. Why does this matter? Because it changes what a casino company is actually optimizing for. A hotel room that costs relatively little to clean and maintain, sold for hundreds of dollars a night at near total occupancy, generates extraordinary margin. A convention center that fills 4,000 rooms midweek when leisure travel is slow smooths out revenue in a way slot machines never could. The modern strip operator is, at its core, running a high-margin hospitality and commercial real estate portfolio, with a casino attached to keep foot traffic high and give people a reason to stay inside the building instead of wandering elsewhere. Now go to Macau, and the picture is different again, which is exactly what makes the comparison so revealing. Macau overtook Las Vegas as the largest gambling market in the world by a wide margin, and for years, most of that revenue didn't come from ordinary tourists feeding slot machines. It came from VIP gambling rooms, run through a system called junkets. Here's how that worked. Chinese law restricts how much money citizens can move out of the mainland. High rollers who wanted to gamble far beyond the limit couldn't just show up with the cash. So junket operators stepped in as middlemen. They extended credit to wealthy gamblers in mainland China, arranged their travel to Macau, and then were personally responsible for collecting the debt once the gambling was done, often through channels well outside anything a bank would touch. Casinos loved this arrangement because it let them capture enormous betting volume from people who otherwise couldn't have gambled at that scale, without the casino itself taking on the legal risk of chasing debts across the mainland border. For a long stretch, this was extraordinarily profitable. At its peak, VIP junket play made up more than half of all gaming revenue in Macau, a staggering share, driven almost entirely by relationships, trust, and informal credit rather than the machines on the floor. And that's the counterintuitive turn. The most profitable part of the world's largest gambling market wasn't really a gambling product at all. It was a credit and trust network built on relationships between junket operators and ultra-wealthy players, layered on top of a legal gray zone. The casino wasn't just selling odds. It was providing the physical venue for an underground banking system to route enormous sums of money in and out of mainland China. Then came the moment that exposed exactly how fragile that structure was. Beginning around 2014, China's central government launched a sweeping anti-corruption campaign, targeting officials and wealthy individuals suspected of moving illicit money out of the country. Macau's VIP junket system sat directly in the blast radius. As scrutiny intensified, junket operators pulled back, high rollers grew cautious about being seen gambling at that scale, and some junket-linked companies collapsed outright amid fraud allegations and unpaid debts. The result was one of the sharpest revenue crashes any major gambling market has ever experienced. Macau's gaming revenue fell for years in a row, VIP volume shrank dramatically, and casino operators who had built their business around junket credits suddenly had to explain to investors how they'd survive without it. Watch the chain reaction here, because it's the whole lesson. A political crackdown targeting corruption led to junket operators withdrawing. That reduced VIP credit flowing into Macau. That collapsed VIP gaming revenue, the single largest slice of the market. That forced casino operators to pivot hard toward mass-market gambling, ordinary tourists, not billionaires, and toward exactly the non-gaming revenue strategy Las Vegas had already been building: hotels, retail, shows, family-friendly attractions. One policy decision in Beijing rewired the business model of an entire gambling capital thousands of miles away. The operators who survived that shift best were the ones who had already been diversifying, building integrated resorts with retail malls, entertainment, and convention space, the same playbook as the Strip. The ones who had leaned hardest into junket dependency were hit hardest, because their entire revenue engine ran on a credit network that political will could switch off almost overnight. Compare the two realistic outcomes for a casino company today, and the picture is stark. The diversified operator, heavy on real estate, hospitality margin, and broad tourist appeal, rides out downturns because gambling is just one revenue stream among several. The operator that stayed dependent on a narrow, high-risk source of gambling revenue, whether that's junket credit or any other concentrated bet, is one regulatory shift away from a crisis. Vegas learned this lesson slowly, over decades, as competition forced it to find new ways to make money once other states legalized gambling and undercut its monopoly on the activity itself. Macau learned it violently, in a matter of months, when Beijing decided to look closely at where wealthy citizens' money was actually going. So the honest answer to how a casino really survives is almost nothing like the picture in your head. It survives by turning a building into a machine for capturing money in as many different forms as possible: room nights, restaurant checks, retail sales, convention bookings, and yes, gambling, so that no single source of revenue can sink the whole operation if it disappears. The slot machines and the card tables are the part you can see and the part that gives the building its identity. But underneath that floor sits something closer to a real estate portfolio and a financial institution, engineered to extract value from human attention, status, and credit far more reliably than any game of chance ever could. The house doesn't just win because the odds favor it. The house wins because, by the time you've noticed the casino, it has already built 5 other ways to profit from you before you ever sit down at a table.